Welcome to the CarbSmart Podcast, where your decision to embrace low-carb nutrition becomes a fun and delicious lifestyle. I'm your host, Dana Carpenter, here to guide you through the ins and outs of everything low-carb, or to talk to the people who can. My sister Kim is asthmatic. Between not getting enough oxygen is essential for fat burning, and having taken prednisone way too often, she has had an even harder time with her weight than I. It's not for lack of exercise. She's a middle school teacher on a spread out one-story campus that has her walking 15 to 20,000 steps every workday. On her days off, she walks around the lake at a local park. She's worked with a trainer. She eats zero junk. It's just hellishly hard. When she signed up with the trainer, Kim was told, you'll have to stop drinking soda and eating fast food and chips and stuff, right? When Kim told the trainer she didn't consume any of that junk, the trainer was distinctly at a loss. After all, we all know that obesity is solely due to bad diet, right? Right? Then, last year, Kim heard about a new program called Low-Carb in San Diego, where she lives. Dr. James Labelle was offering free treatment to teachers needing to lose weight, including a free continuous glucose monitor, dietary advice, support groups, and free Wegovy, a GLP-1 drug. Kim was in. Interestingly, with the glucose monitor, Kim discovered that her breakfast of plain yogurt with vanilla extract and Splenda was spiking her blood sugar. Who knew? So far, Kim has lost 22 pounds. It was clear I needed to talk to Dr. Labelle. So here he is. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because you don't want to miss a single episode. Hi, gang. Dana Carpenter here with another CarbSmart 3-question interview. Today, I am interviewing Dr. James Labelle, all the way out in San Diego. And I know about Dr. Labelle because my sister has been seeing him for what, a year now?
Yeah, we've had a relationship for a year.
Okay. And his lore program, which I find fascinating, and I'm going to get some more information about it for both of us. It is fundamentally a reduced, at least, carbohydrate program, though.
Well, yeah, that's a good first place to start.
Yeah.
But
Just so you know, I've been eating low carb for 29 years now.
Well, that's great. We get too many carbs in our diet, and it's caused a lot of havoc. So I work for a company that's really the culmination of my career. I spent 25 years as an emergency physician, and
Wow.
then the last 10 years of my career as the chief medical officer for a health system in San Diego. That was a big health system. And the reason I took the job and got away from clinical care is that I thought I could make a difference in how we manage diseases in the community. But the transactional medical system doesn't really support disease interception. It really, the business model is only about doing things for people when they're broken. And I left the company and with several really lifetime friends, established Low-Carb with a person who was the former chief technology officer of United Health Group, and sort of passionately we believed in the same thing, and a bunch of other people that were aligned around the same thing. And the Low-Carb is a health technology company that really seeks to improve in a scalable and infectious way mental and physical health, and really the practice of daily healing through the use of modern technology, including a generative AI bot called Low-Carb bot. But most importantly, it has an online community that is focused around support, encouragement, validation, inspiration, and really social connection. So, you know, the ability to be able to heal people at scale so that they can begin to understand why they eat and what their physiology is and how to practice a life that allows you to heal.
Yeah, the thing that I keep coming back to, having been writing about, I started writing about low carb in the 90s. It's been a while. And by the way, I gave up sugar and white flour when I was 19. But it people talk about food addiction, and but overwhelmingly, I don't think there's so much food addiction as there is carb addiction. People are addicted to sugar. People are addicted to wheat. Have you read Dr. William Davis's Wheat Belly? Because he talks about the opioid-like properties of particularly gliadin, and the fact that wheat is profoundly addictive. And
Not familiar
people,
with that, but I am familiar with how addictive and powerful sugar is. And you know, and this is like a really interesting business model for, you know, the former cigarette manufacturers who now are building all this customized, highly processed food that's highly palatable, that soothes us, but it also causes us to store fat. And so, you know, honestly, medicine hasn't done a good job of helping people understand their physiology. One of the things we do at Lower is we help people understand their physiology. Are you resistant to insulin? How does that manifest in your day? How and really, insulin is the central hormone here, because I think a lot of people think that insulin is like, it lowers blood sugar. Like, this is not what insulin is for. Insulin is the store energy hormone. Then insulin, you know, when we had excess energy in our environment of daily, you know, our daily environment, we stored it as fat because we didn't get 3 meals a day.
yeah.
But what happens
And
is, you know,
in hunter-gatherer days, gaining weight was a good thing
yeah,
because it meant that you could get through, you know, a week
famine.
when you didn't get anything.
Yeah. And so insulin was a really useful hormone, and it affects every cell in different ways. One of the ways it affects fat cells is it causes them to grab onto triglycerides floating by in the bloodstream. One of the ways that it affects the liver is that it causes the liver to take glucose and convert it into triglycerides to store as fat. One of the effects that it has in the immune system, and that it activates the immune system and really agitates it. The problem is as fat cells get fatter, they become less sensitive to insulin, and including the liver. And in order for the body to clear the carbohydrate that's coming into the body through these ultra processed foods, insulin levels have to start climbing. And so that's what happens. We think over 80% of the United States population has insulin resistance. So that means elevated insulin levels all the time.
Well,
And
and that
as you get more, as you carry more and more insulin resistance, you move more and more closer to diabetes until you overwhelm the system and your sugars start to rise. And so insulin's like this central to the whole conversation. The interesting thing is that you can reverse insulin resistance. The only way that I've seen it done is through fasting. And you have to build an environment in which your body's enzyme systems allow a triglyceride to be burned for energy. You can't feed it carbohydrate all the time. And when you do that, you can train your body to use the fat you carry as energy. And but it's a hard thing to do. You know,
how long of fast are you talking? Now, this is off my list. I have my list of 3 questions right here. but we've gone afield, but that's okay because I'm fascinated. How long a fast are you talking about? I generally fast. I generally do 16/8. And I've read Jason Fung. Um, who, for those watching, Jason Fung is a doctor who has written a great deal about fasting. How long a fast do you recommend?
Well, I think you start. So it's a different conversation with somebody that's living like a healthy life. I think fasting has a role there. The goal of fasting when you're trying to lose weight is really to create the longest period of time in which the body's enzyme systems produce ketones because it doesn't have enough glucose. So, a lot of people can't fast very long when they start, but as you develop these systems that, get retrained to process fat into ketones, you can do longer and longer. So I tell people to push for 2 meals a day that are 6 hours apart, and they need to stay below 130 grams of carbs a day, and they need to put in 1 gram to 1.25 grams per pound of lean body mass of protein. So this is like a massive change in the way that you live your life. But that's what's required.
And I am one of the people who found that, and I don't weigh or measure anything at this point because I've been doing this so long. I pretty much know what my body deals with. I eat meat and eggs and cheese and nuts and seeds and green vegetables, and that's pretty much it. But now I've lost what I was going to ask you. Darn it. So I want to thank you. Apparently, you started a lot giving away treatment to teachers, which I admire. My sister, of course, being a teacher. Where do you see the future of lore going?
Yeah, so the reason that we chose teachers, because lore is really about, excuse me, lore is really about pragmatic learning. In our community on lore, excuse me again, the AI suppresses, experts coming on and telling people what to do. What it elevates into people's attention in the community is pragmatic learning. I tried this. It worked for me. This is how I feel. Got a piece of pretzel in the wrong too.
Oh, dear.
Okay, a little water. I think
Carbs are punishing you. Carbs are punishing you.
Yeah, they are. But they have peanut butter inside of them.
Okay.
And I'm in the middle of my eating window. And I completely forgot where we were.
I was asking what you saw as the future of lore, but I would like to say I generally aim for considerably fewer carbs than 130 in a day.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
that's really the threshold for being able to reliably produce ketones.
Yeah,
people can go. You can go to 30 or 60, but it's really hard for people to go directly there.
I have a ketonics breath ketone meter, and when I blow into it, I generally am in mild ketosis, unless I've been doing what's called fat fasting, which is 1,000 calories a day, roughly 90% of them from fat, which obviously jacks ketone levels much higher. And I try to do that 2 days a week. And it's hard to get 90% of your calories from fat unless you like olive oil shooters. It's hard to get 90% of your calories from fat. But where I asked about you're starting with teachers and what you saw the future of this as.
Yeah, and I was just going to share that, really we're developing communities on lore. Teachers are very articulate and are used to like participating in community through their classroom, and so there's sort of the idea target population to work with, and all the teachers that I work with are obese. There's about 30 of them, And the idea is for them to participate in the Lore app, but at the same time participate in, we call it the healing circle. I act more as a coach to help people come to understand what the barriers are in front of them. And the physiological barriers are easy to confront because, we wear continuous glucose monitors.
Yeah.
We do home inflammation tests. We do home insulin testing.
Where does one get a home inflammation test or a
you
insulin test?
you gotta talk to me.
Okay, because I get my insulin tested now and then, and I have to go to the local hospital to get it done. They can't even do it at my doctor's office. They can do, obviously, they can do A1C, but they won't do
So you can
insulin.
calculate your insulin resistance, and so then what's the barrier that you're facing, and
I'm not. I just want to know. I
yeah,
just
no,
want to
but the
know.
barrier
I'm not,
being
I mean,
how
I,
how how insulin resistant you are. That's what I meant. So if you're really
uh,
highly insulin resistant, like this, it's going to be really challenging. If you're not very insulin
oh,
resistant,
okay.
you're going to see the turnaround really quick.
Um, I did have, I have a doctor that I see specifically for hormones and anti-aging stuff. And he feels that I'm really, really good at gluconeogenesis. I mean, really good at gluconeogenesis. Um, and for a while, he had me on Trulicity, which is, of course, a GLP-1, but my insurance won't cover that anymore. Um, Fortunately, I have managed to maintain loss. I am currently, I'm 5'2". I weigh 125 pounds depending on the day, and I I'm size 8. I started at 200 pounds and a size 20, so I appear to have conquered this thing. Um, and again, I've been eating this way for a very long while. And I didn't have that hard a time because I think because I had given up sugar at the age of 9, sugar and white flour at the age of 19, and instantly felt so much better within 3 days. The line I use is within 3 days, I felt like I'd gone from living in black and white to living in color. Um, and and I think maybe because I'd had that experience,
Uh-huh.
the idea of giving up, the whole grains and beans and stuff I'd been eating, and that had gotten me up to 200 pounds, wasn't that hard. Talk to me though about the continuous glucose monitors, because I know, Kim told me about that, and that's a really interesting um,
So
feature. And I'd like to know in particular if obviously we expect things like bread or cereal or soda or candy or whatever to jack blood sugar up. But are there some really surprising culprits? I know Kim says that her yogurt that she ate every morning for breakfast jacks up her blood sugar. So what are the surprises there?
well, I think the surprise there is how it's not just your food, but how connected it is to your mind and the stress in your life and the connection to sleep. And so there's some very interesting and surprising experiences you can have with a continuous glucose monitor. You can learn that if you just take a walk after a meal, your glucose will rapidly drop down. You'll learn that if you have dessert and go to bed, you look like a diabetic all night. So those are all things that you can learn. That's the first person learning, but the most important learning from the continuous glucose monitor is recognizing that it's really a surrogate for insulin. And if you wanted to call it an insulin monitor, the meaning of the monitor changes for you a lot because, as I said, insulin is the store fat signal. So if you're eating foods that spike your glucose and the glucose stays up for a long period of time because you're inactive, you can infer that your insulin's doing the exact same thing. It's spiking up and it's staying high. And if you would be in community, you'd be learning that that's the store fat signal. And so that I think changes people more than oh, this is what sugar does to me. this idea that this is what insulin does to me, because it's insulin's the culprit here. I mean, it's not the only thing, but it's a big barrier.
Huge.
So
And
so
I
that's how we
understand that
use it, CGM.
doesn't insulin also trigger other hormones, the release of other hormones?
It can. There's an insulin receptor on every cell in the body and in the brain. So it virtually affects every cell in the body. So you have to believe that having a chronically elevated insulin is pathological in the sense that the negative signal, I don't need to store fat, doesn't exist. And so it can manifest in many illnesses.
Well, and you mentioned insulin reception in the brain, and it drives me crazy when people say, "Oh, you have to eat carbs because the brain needs glucose." And I'm like, no, the brain runs happily on ketones. The brain runs happily on, it can't run on free fatty acids, but it can run on ketones. And I have seen articles about how there's now some feeling that one of the things that can cause dementia is insulin resistance in the brain, and that for some people you can do an end run around that by going on a ketogenic diet and letting the brain run on ketones instead. And if that's true, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, there's this whole field of metabolic psychiatry that's opened up over the past decade. And fundamentally, what we've learned is that the energy systems in various parts of the brain may be broken, and that leads to various illnesses. And so there's lots of anecdotal reports of serious mental illness, and I'm not just talking depression or anxiety. I'm also talking about schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. That there have been reports of remissions in a ketogenic diet. That doesn't mean that happens to everyone, but it's enough to begin to do clinical trials around this as an intervention.
The thing that made me quit sugar and white flour at the age of 19 was I read my first nutrition book, and it was a book called Psychodietetics, and it was about the psychiatric effects of nutrition. I had been literally stealing to support my sugar habit. As a teenager, I was lifting 5s and 10s out of my mother's wallet to support my sugar habit. And in the early 70s, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
I have had several addictions in my life, which I still drink a lot of tea, but other than that, I've managed to quit cigarettes and diet soda, and interestingly, it was when I quit sugar and white flour that was the seminal addiction. The book had a list of 48, I think it was, symptoms of reactive hypoglycemia that most people would think were caused by emotional problems. I have 40 of them. And I have been stealing money to support my sugar habit, and I had been seeing a shrink from the time I was 11. Now, it turns out I also had undiagnosed ADD because nobody had even come up with the term ADD by then. But I quit sugar and white flour, and sure enough, all the other addictions over the next 5-10 years fell away. They just fell away. The sugar was the seminal addiction. It was the core of the addiction problem. So we're treating. I was going to ask you about treating the facets of metabolic syndrome, but I was going to ask you, had you seen improvements in health problems that are not identified as part of metabolic syndrome? But we've already been talking about that, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really it makes a huge difference, I feel, psychologically. You talk about the support system, and I have been telling people I started I wrote a self-published book called How I Gave Up My Low-Fat Diet and Lost 40 Pounds back in the late 90s. Eventually got picked up by a publisher, and now, of course, it's up to 75 pounds I've lost. But I started writing an e-zine to get the word out and to help sell the book. And one of the things I was telling people all the way back then, and I have continued to tell them, is find support, find support, find support. I have always been hugely fortunate in that my husband has always supported me in this. He has never been unsupportive. And as for the rest of the world, I have a certain go to hell attitude. You can't make me eat the birthday cake. You can't do it. It won't happen. But I don't care how much you nag or tease me. You'll love this. Years ago, when I was maybe 2 or 3 years into this, I had a friend whose husband was a jobber who would buy up overstock and things like that, and then sell it to dollar stores and big lots and places like that. And I was over at their house, and he said he just bought this lot of 5-pound buckets of cookies. And wouldn't I like a 5-pound bucket of cookies? And I was like, no, I don't eat sugar and white flour, and I don't eat carbs. And he said, what? You don't have any fun anymore? It took everything I had not to say, I prefer sex, thanks. But literally, I will get, if people try to push me to eat carbs, I will get in their face, and they will get chapter and verse going all the way back to Banting and Stillman, and it's not going to work. So this is a global health thing. By the way, you'll like to know this too, and this is another thing I got from Dr. Davis, who I mentioned earlier, who wrote Wheat Belly, and I know him from, there's a low-carb cruise every year, and you might be interested in seeing if you could become a speaker on the low-carb cruise. I would love to see that happen. And if you want, I'll put you in touch with the woman who schedules that.
Well, I'm not a cruiser. My adventure time is spent backpacking and skiing.
Okay. My feeling is tax-deductible cruise doesn't suck. That's my feeling. But of course, you live right by an ocean. You live right by an ocean. I do not. I live in southern Indiana. We are a long way from. We are actually. I'm sorry.
I'm literally a block to the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. So for me, going and being on a big, fun, shiny party boat, that's also a petri dish. I've gotten sick a couple of times on cruises. Last time I cruised, I came home with COVID. Very mild COVID, but COVID nonetheless. Oh, that's something that I've noticed. And have you noticed this for others? Anything I get in the way of a respiratory illness, a cold, or my one case of COVID, very mild, very mild. I used to have much worse colds and far more often. At this point, I had COVID a year ago this past March. So it's 18 months, and it was so mild, I was debating whether or not I was starting to come down with a cold, and it never got worse than that. Now I am vaxxed. But I also think it's just that I don't catch stuff because my body's healthy. Are you seeing that?
The dimensions of health that improve with the improvement of insulin resistance are across the board. And it's fundamentally, if you only feed the mitochondria, the powerhouses in your body, carbohydrates, they don't work as well. They need ketones intermittently. So it's no surprise that maybe your immune system works a little bit better because you're less insulin resistant, and that that would be one thing I think about. It's hard to really say I observe something about prevalence of how sick you get in the population with the small communities that I have. But I think it's probably, if I was to be a betting man and you said, okay, I'm going to make you bet for or against this, and then we're going to open the envelope, I would bet that improved insulin resistance and changes the way that you fight every infection, not just viral infections.
Well, and one of the things I have pointed out to people is that cancer is a glucose hog. And I have a good friend who, at the age of 42, was diagnosed with multiple myeloma and told to get her affairs in order. She had maybe 18 months left. That was in the late 90s. She is still alive. Now, she's not well, but she's still alive. She got into a drug a drug trial for thalidomide, and it has kept her alive. But she was losing tremendous amounts of weight. And I knew I couldn't get Kim to go low carb, but I told her to start adding coconut oil and medium chain triglyceride oil to her diet. And that way she could feed the healthy cells, because, of course, the thing that causes cachexia is that your cancer is eating all of your glucose, leaving nothing for the healthy cells to eat. And if you feed yourself some good healthy fat, you can at least feed your healthy cells something.
It's probably something that we need to think about. I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways to get healthy, but fundamentally, I think that once you realize, oh, okay, here's the physiology, there's all sorts of reasons that your body shouldn't be consuming glucose all the time, like all sorts of healthy reasons, and all you have to do is this fasting thing and low carb, and you're like, people are like, how can that come about? Because that's the barrier. You can shoulder through it with discipline, and but you don't get very far because you are doing it with discipline, which is a consumable. And so you have to find ways to change discipline into devotion. And
again, you can't get me. You can't get me eat a bunch of carbs. You can't do it. And now people don't even try, because 29 years later, and having made writing about this my career, I am so well known as a hardened criminal case nutball low carber that nobody even tries anymore. In fact, people apologize to me eating things I wouldn't eat, which I find hilarious. My response is always, I'm information, not enforcement. But a million years ago.
So this is like a really interesting thing that you've done this, because at a time you were dependent upon glucose. And so, when we first started on this, it's like, I've got it out. And so you were able to transform sort of your diet into an act of self-love. This is not discipline that's doing this right now. It's self-love. It may be militant self-love, but it's self-love. And that's fundamentally very different than discipline. And so that's the challenge people get. So, it's easy to teach. You find out your insulin resistance. You see the foods you eat to cause your insulin to go up. You experiment with fasting, but fundamentally, it's unless you deal with the core issues of why that diet exists for you, you won't be successful. And
unless
so one of the things that starting to practice this, it brings this clearly into focus. I see, as a rule, the people that I coach tend to drop off and then come back and apologize and express their loyalty. And these sentences that they speak when they come back are just filled with shame. And this is the moment that we're able to finally get down to what are the emotions that are actually driving your eating patterns. And people don't like confronting that, but it's the only pathway through. That if you're soothing your emotions because you weren't taught about how to process emotions when you were a kid, and that there's something wrong with you because that drives shame, then, all of a sudden you can say, oh, okay, this is really a spiritual path. It isn't a metabolic a diet path. It's a spiritual path, and we work on that pathway. Because the brain doesn't work the way people think it works. But you got to have enough curiosity to say, okay, I've done all this stuff, it's not working, and I just can't do this diet, and I can't do this fasting. And then you have to be curious enough to ask why and explore it. So we exploit situations in which shame manifests itself, so we can point to it and say, look at that.
Okay.
And how often do you feel that? And how does that feel? And how often is it hidden?
And again, I told people and tell people to get support. And if they can't get it from their family, I had one person write me that she was losing weight on low carb and improving her health and all that. And her husband had taken to bringing her home boxes of expensive chocolates and opening the box and leaving it beside her on the sofa. And she had taken to putting a little sandwich bag between the sofa cushions and stashing a few chocolates in the plastic bag so he would think she had eaten them. That is so fun. To me, that's abusive. That degree of sabotage. I told her that I admire her.
It's also like a manifestation of a really, really broken relationship that needs a conversation.
Well,
so,
yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I told her that
hiding the chocolate, that's a problem. I see that as much of a problem as him doing. Let's confront this.
We're running out of time. We're almost out of time. I told her that I probably would have picked up the box of chocolates, taken them into the bathroom, dumped them in the toilet, and flushed. And after a few rounds of spending his money to feed the sugar to the septic tank, he might have stopped. But then again, I'm married to a man who is endlessly supportive. I didn't marry until I was 36, but by God, I married the right man. Anyway, this has been fun. Please, I keep asking you to send me your address so I can send you cookbooks. Okay. My publisher, so just email me your address, mailing address, so that I can have my publisher ship you cookbooks, because they would love to do that.
I would love to use your cookbook.
Yeah. Cookbooks. It's like 15, 16, 17 of them now. I've published over 4,000 recipes.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I have your thing right here, and I'm going to reply to it right now.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this has been really enjoyable. There's so much more to talk here.
Yeah.
Like the emotional, spiritual part of this is actually where the barrier is.
Yeah.
Like we talk about, like people like you, somehow you made it through this barrier. And
well, keep in mind that I had because I was the problem child because of undiagnosed ADD, I had endless psychotherapy as a kid. But and frankly, going low carb and then giving up sugar, going low carb, and then getting on medication. I take Wellbutrin for my ADD. All of that has done far more for me than talk therapy did. But I have had the talk therapy. Hell of a lot of it. I hate to think how much money my parents spent trying to fix what was basically a biochemical problem. This has been great. In particular, I would love to actually maybe go get lunch or something next time I'm out visiting Kim.
Sure.
Would that work for you? Yeah. Okay. I will have my publisher send you books. And I would love to do this again when the LORE program has gotten a little older. If you'd be
whenever you're interested, do you want me to send you a invite to the community?
That would be great. That'll be our
exchange.
Cool. Thank you so much, Dr. James Labelle. Oh, is there anything you would like people to know? Is there a website they should go to or something like that?
If you start getting curious about this, there's all sorts of things to look here. I would say there's 3 books. Do I have enough time to give 3 books?
I don't know. It told me what seemed like 10 minutes.
Less than a minute. I'll email you the books.
Okay. And I will let people know. Thank you, Dr. James Labelle. And thank you for helping my sister. Thank you for helping my sister. She says her inflammation is way down. So
her asthma is so much better.
Yeah. Have a lovely rest of your day. I'm going to
Well,
go heat up leftover peanut soup that I made my very own self. Uh,
lovely.
uh, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Do you or anyone you know have a medical condition that makes weight loss near impossible? Sometimes these are obvious, like Kim's asthma, but others are hidden, and it seems there are many left to be discovered and diagnosed. Do you keep close track of your blood sugar with a monitor? What do you think of using GLP-1 drugs for weight loss? Let us know in the comments below. This episode's recipe is perfect for summer grilling. That nice boy I married and I adore a good ribeye, but they're awfully pricey. Happily, I have learned to marinate big, thick chuck roasts, making them tender enough to grill. You can impress a backyard full of guests with this recipe from the insulin resistance solution. Just click on the link below or go to carbsmart.com/podcast30recipe. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because you don't want to miss a single episode. Until next time, stay low carb, happy, and healthy.